Om Namo Narayanaaya. Om Namo Narayanaaya.
Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So we're continuing with Sri Vaisnava Brahmans, and section 7 is about Ramanuja's conception of God. So the conception of God is laid down by Ramanuja. To have a clear view of what Ramanuja tried to establish regarding the idea of Brahman, of the Supreme Being, right, the absolute being, which was then acquiesced in and followed by his disciples and followers, it is necessary to dwell on Shankara's view of Brahman as developed in Advaita Vedanta, Advaitism, or non-dualism, or monism, let's say, right? And elaborated in his Bhashya on the Vedanta Sutras. So the point being made here in this first sentence is he's saying, in order to understand Ramanuja is all about criticizing Shankara, because the whole idea of Vedanta is that there should be some common, everything in existence, the souls, God, and the universe have got some common features. They've got some things in common. Shankara says they're just one thing. They're completely the same. Whereas, so let's have a look at that. Let's understand a little bit about Shankara's idea, and then we can understand how Ramanuja differs from that idea. That'll be easy. So that's his idea here. So Shankara also came before Ramanuja, and he wrote this commentary called Shariraka Mimamsa, or Shariraka Bhashya, or Shankara Bhashya, sometimes it's called, commentary on the Vedanta Sutras of Badarayana, otherwise sometimes called Vedavyas. Most people identify Badarayana with Vedavyas as the same person, but some people say, no, he's Badarayana, and there's another person called Vedavyas. So in any case, there are these sutras, which are very small rules or aphorisms, very short sentences, very cryptic, very that you cannot really understand without a purport, without a commentary. So that what the idea of the sutras is, they put philosophical doctrines in a type of logical order. Whereas if you just read the Upanishads, the philosophical doctrines come all out of order. So the idea of Badarayana or Vedavyasa is he codified the doctrines, the Vedantic doctrines in the Upanishads in a specific order so they could be learned progressively, so that you could learn them step by step instead of just reading the Upanishads, which would mean jumping around on different topics here and there. So each topic in the Vedanta Sutras is logically going to the next topic, like that. So Shankara started the system of making a commentary on them so that people could understand them. Shankara's commentary is according to his philosophy, which is called Kevala Advaita or Advaita or monism. Ramanuja came later, and Ramanuja said he followed Bodhayana, Tanka, Dravida, Kapardin, Guhadev, these other people who had come before, but whose commentaries had been eclipsed, had been overshadowed by Shankara, right? So he wanted to bring up those people's ideas again and make it in a very strong way, make the argument in a very strong way against what Shankara had given. So Shankara holds that Brahman. So when we say the word Brahman, Shankara thinks of it as everything, but it's completely undifferentiated. It has no qualities. It has no form. So therefore, it's just one homogeneous thing, one thing. So Brahman, according to everybody else, is the supreme absolute truth, and has a personality, may also have an impersonal aspect, but also has a personality and is a person and can reside in one place as well as every place at the same time, because he's omnipresent. So that's the difference. So when we say Brahman, we'll just say the absolute truth, or that it's called Ishvara or God, and different people of different sects, they call God by different names. The Christians have their name for God. And the Vaishnavas have their name. Yam Shaiva Yamupasati Shiveti Brahmeti Vedanti Naha Bodha Buddha Iti Pramana Patapaha Kartiti Nyaya Ikaha. There's a famous verse. It's an inscription on the temple in Karnataka, which says that all of these people, the Shaivites think that God is Shiva, the Vaishnavas think that he's Vishnu, the Vedantas think he's Brahman, the Jains think he's Arhat. You you can add the Muslims think he's Allah, the Christians think he's Christ or God or Allah or Jehovah, whatever. So, the Jews think he's Yahweh. So they all have different names, but God, the concept of God is one. The concept of God is one, the supreme being, the greatest, the creator, who's all powerful and omnipresent. Okay, so let's see what Shankara says. So when we say Brahman, we mean God, basically. So Shankara holds that Brahman, or the supreme, right, is the only real thing. There is no other real thing but Brahman, right? So this is why Shankara has a motto. He has a slogan. He has a saying, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. So Brahma or Brahman, right, or the supreme is real. Satyam is true, right? Satyam means true, and in this sense, true means completely real all the time. It's true. It's the absolute truth. So the absolute truth is Brahman, is the supreme, right? And so Brahma Satyam. And then the next part of it, Jagat Mithya. Everything else is false. The souls are false. The world is false. Everything is false. These personalist type of deities like Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, Devi, all these sort of demigods and all these sort of personalities, that's all false. And the world is also false, and the souls are also false. That's his idea. They're all illusion, right? So Shankara holds that Brahman is the only real thing, and all else, including ourselves, meaning the souls, the individual jivatmans, right, and our experiences, right, what to speak of the material universe, right, are non-existent and hence unreal. They're non-existent and unreal. They don't exist. If we think they exist, it's only because of an illusion, right? Like a mirage in the desert. Like you see water in the desert, there's no water there. It's just a mirage. It's just unreal. It's an illusion. So the belief in our individual existence arising from our bodily experience, so we have some bodily experience. And so because of that bodily experience, we think, it's very common that we say, oh, you think that you're this body, you think that you're this mind, but you're actually the soul within. The way an Advaitin or a follower of Shankara would say it is, you think that you're that soul, you think that you're that mind, you think that you're that body, you think that this is universe, but actually you're just Brahman. You're the supreme. Like that. You just don't know it. You're in illusion. So the belief that our individual existence arising from our bodily experience and its entanglement in samsara with karma and life after life going around in the wheel of birth and death, which is what samsara is, right, is said to be an error. It's said to be a mistake. So whatever we see, it's said to be a mistake, right? Whatever we sense the world is different from us, we sense that we have an individual existence, that's all a mistake according to Shankara. So the higher knowledge, and Shankara says this, that there's two forms of knowledge. There's the Vyavaharika knowledge, which he calls down here, and there's the Paramartika knowledge, the high knowledge. So once you get to the high stage, you see that that's what you thought at this low stage was just an illusion, and you see it was wrong. It was a mistake. I'll give you a simple example of this idea of thinking that there's two stages of perception or of reality. When we go outside and we look at the land, and we see the land looks, except for a few hills and mountains, the land looks flat. Right now we know, because we've seen pictures or because people have gone up in airplanes or gone up into outer space, we know that the Earth is curved, is a sphere like that. There may be a few nutty people who don't think that, but there's pretty much everybody, it's proved, you can prove it mathematically, you can prove it scientifically, that the world is a sphere. Okay. the planet is a sphere, right? Even we look into outer space with telescopes and things like that, we see other spherical planets out there. So why would we think that they're the only spherical planets and we're somehow or other we're flat? It's strange, you know. All the people in Australia are somehow standing on their heads or standing upside down. This is all things that people used to believe, you know, thousands of years ago or even hundreds of years ago, perhaps in Europe. Okay, so now we know with scientific proof and with mathematics and all these different proofs that the world is a sphere, right? But when we go outside, our experience is we look and we see a plane and we don't see the curve of the earth because we can't see that far usually, right? So we look and we see it looks flat. It looks flat to me. You know, maybe there's a few hills, but it looks flat. Now, if we go up in a plane or if we go up in a balloon or if we go up very, very high, once we get to the higher stage and we look down, we see that it's actually round like that. So that's just an analogy, and the way that Shankara thinks. He thinks like that. There are some other analogies to sort of explain the way they think. Okay, so the higher knowledge showed this world. Right, let's have a look. The followers of Shankara consider Shastra also as Maya. Yes, everything is Maya. Maya means that which is not. Everything that you see which is not Brahman is different from Brahman, which has got no qualities, right? That is Maya. Yes, that Maya means Maya. Ya means that. Ma means not that. No, it's not Brahman, right? Maya. So Maya, and Maya also means illusion, right? So, or they consider Shastra as Brahman too. No, Shastra isn't Brahman. Brahman is Brahman. Brahman has no qualities, right? It's quality. You know, we say it's impossible to understand Brahman like that because it's called nirguna in Sanskrit. Guna means qualities, nir means without. So if we say that Brahman is nirguna, it means it has the quality of having no qualities. So logically speaking, you can't have anything without qualities. Anything that you talk about as existing has some qualities. Even if we say nirguna Brahman has no qualities, we say it has one quality, it has the quality of having no qualities. So logically, it doesn't make any sense. Their concept of Brahman doesn't make any sense like that. Right, and this is where we get into, you know, defeating monism. It's crazy also because they say everything is Brahman, right? Then you say, well, what about the world? They say, no, that's just an illusion that's caused by ignorance or by Maya, like that. So is ignorance real? Is Maya real? If Maya is not real, if ignorance is not real, then how can it cover Brahman? It doesn't make any sense. So their philosophy actually doesn't make any sense. The problem is that most of these people who follow Shankara, they don't go deeply into it. The people who do go deeply into it realize that there are mistakes in it, but they're unable to give it up because they're attached to the idea that of following that particular philosophy, but they can't live it. It's impossible to live it. It's not practical. It's not logical, right? So still they cling to it. Okay, whatever it is. Anyway, so if they consider all things, material things, to be false, not just all material things, all things, except for one thing, Brahman, right? Why they follow Varnashram so strictly? They follow Varnashram strictly because Varnashram is mentioned in the Shastras. So their belief is that by studying the scriptures and by following the scriptures, one has no knowledge right now, but by following the scriptures and performing these things, right, performing these different yogas, karma yoga, jnana yoga, even bhakti yoga, right, that one will come to a higher level. At one point there'll be realization, and they say jnanat mokshaha, from knowledge comes liberation. So once I know, for example, right, the same example, I look and I see that the world looks flat to me. But if I study books about the globe of the earth and everything, I study those mathematical proofs and I study all the different proofs like that. Once I educate myself from those books, I realize the world is not flat. The world is round. or is a globe, is a ball. So so that's what they say. So until you realize there is no Shastra, until you realize there is no you have to study the Shastra and you have to follow the Shastra. When you realize that Shastra doesn't exist and you don't exist, then you don't have to follow the Shastra. You don't have to do anything anymore. Right? That's their philosophy. Right? It sounds, when you put it in those terms, it sounds very silly, but that's what they believe. Okay. So if you really want to go into the reasons why they believe that, there's lots and lots of technical reasons, and you can go through the scriptures and you can see what the scriptures say, and you can see where they've made their mistakes, right? But it's beyond this simple introduction here. We have to get very, very technical, and we can do that. There's another book called Paramatabhanga by Vedanta Deshika, where he talks about Advaita and explains step by step by step. Shrivasya, in the beginning of Shrivasya by Ramanuja, there's what's called there's a Purvapaksha and a Sananta. There's an initial argument, which is the argument of Shankara, and then Ramanuja gives the truth, right? That destroys the argument of Ramanuja. This is called there's a thing called the Mahasiddhanta, like that, part of the beginning of Shrivasya. So you can study that also, and you'll see all the arguments, all the reasons why Shankara's view is incorrect. But just because Shankara's view is incorrect ultimately, it doesn't mean that there aren't some things in Shankara's view that might be accepted by even other Vaishnava sampradayas. Okay, there are some things, because ultimately Shankara takes his view from the Upanishads, and we also accept the Upanishads. So there are some things in the Upanishads that speak of common areas between the Lord and the world and the souls. There are some common aspects, right? But we are not the same as God. The world is not the same as God, but there are things in common that we have, right? Okay. So anyway, without getting very technical about it, in a very small introduction like this, we have to just simply say what he's saying and explain it a little bit. So the Shankara holds that Brahman is the only real thing, and all else, including ourselves and our experiences, are non-existent or unreal, hence unreal. The belief in our individual existence arising from our bodily experience and its entanglement in samsara is said to be an error. The higher knowledge showed the whole world and its inhabitants enveloped by ignorance and in the grip of illusion. So we also agree. I also agree with that pretty much the whole world, everybody in the world thinks that they're this body. They've got an illusion. They think that this is only one life that they live, and they don't understand the eternality of the soul. Yeah, so we can agree with some things, partially with Shankara. So from Shankara's standpoint, God is impersonal. Because a person has qualities. So if we say Brahman is got no qualities, then Brahman's not a person, because personhood is a quality, right? So, but so logically we could also say impersonhood is also a quality. But anyway, that's another point. So from Shankara's standpoint, God or Brahman is impersonal and consequently indifferent to the love and suffering of the humanity. So right now, Shankara is talking. He's talking on the low level. He's talking on the low level. He's saying God is impersonal, and therefore he doesn't understand the suffering and the love and the emotions of the human beings in the world, the souls or the animals in the world, like that. Now, ultimately, when he talks on the high level, he says there is actually no world and no souls and no animals and no human beings. But when he talks on a low level, he says, okay, and let's admit for just argument's sake, Shankara says that there are human beings and souls and animals, and and there's love and there's hatred and there's all these suffering in this material world, right? Because Shankara came to defeat the Buddhist doctrine. So Buddha's idea was that there's suffering in the world, and we should try to get away from the suffering in the world. So Shankara also admits that there's suffering in the world. He ultimately says that suffering and that love and that suffering doesn't mean anything because it's unreal. It's an illusion. But just for the time being, he says, let's say that there is some suffering or some type of suffering, some type of love. It doesn't matter that there is that type of suffering or love because God is impersonal, so therefore he's indifferent to it. He doesn't have any relationship to suffering or love. Only people can or a person, and animals can understand suffering and love too, but only a conscious being, a person can experience suffering or love. An impersonal thing without any qualities cannot understand love or suffering. So that's his point. So a Brahman that is devoid of all gunas, all qualities, nir guna, having no qualities, cannot be expected to satisfy the cravings, the desires of an intense religious insight. So people are intensely searching. They're searching for the answer. They're searching for the absolute truth. Even the scientists are searching for the creator. They're searching for creation. They're searching for how it all began, the meaning of life. People are looking for the meaning of life. You can't. If you say to people the meaning of life is that there's just one thing without any qualities, it's not fulfilling. It doesn't fulfill them, right? So further, it's impossible to infer the existence of such a one by any means of perception, inference, or scriptures. So pratyaksha, sense perception, inference, logical inference, which is called anumana, and shabda, or authoritative statements, meaning the Vedic injunctions, the Vedic statements in the Upanishads, cannot prove, right? It's impossible to infer the existence of a personal God, according to Shankara. He says it's impossible. We looked in the Upanishads, and the Upanishads don't prove it. Right? Now, in actual fact, Ramanuja is going to come along and say, look, in the Upanishads, there are some quotes which tend to talk about impersonality. And there are other quotes which talk about personality. And there are other quotes which could talk about personality or could talk about impersonality. These are called Abhedavada, Vedavada, or Abheda Shrutis, and Gatika Shrutis. So there are Shrutis or sentences in the Upanishads. The Upanishads or the Vedas are considered to be the greatest scriptural proof, right? Come down to us from time immemorial, unauthored, like the word of God, whatever it is. So they're accepted like that. Even by Shankara, they're accepted. The Vedas are accepted as very important. Okay, so if you want to prove something, if you can quote the Veda on it. So the Veda says at the same time things are impersonal, and at the same time things are personal, and at the same time it says things can be personal and impersonal, right? So the problem is that Shankara looks only for the quotes in the Vedas that say things are impersonal, and he denies the reality of the quotes that say things are personal. Madhva, on the other hand, likes to look for all the things that are personal. He's a Dvaitist, he's a dualist, right? He believes in difference more often than oneness. He only believes in oneness between different forms of God. He doesn't believe in any other oneness. He doesn't believe that one soul is completely different from another soul. One piece of matter is completely different from another piece of matter, right? This is called, in Madhva philosophy, it's called Panchabheda. There's the soul, there's God, the souls, and matter, the universe, right? The God is different from the soul is different from another soul, the soul is different from matter. Matter is different from God. Matter is different from the soul. Soul is different from one piece of matter is different from another matter. Those are 5 differences there. But God is never different. One form of God and another form of God are never different. They're the same. So this is called Panchabheda. So Madhva emphasizes difference. Shankara emphasizes oneness. Okay, fine. So Ramanuja comes in between. He says, the Upanishads speak about difference. So we have to accept difference. The Upanishads also speak about oneness in some ways, in some certain ways. So we have to also accept some certain types of oneness. So his philosophy is Vishishta Dvaita, specific oneness, oneness on certain aspects, but not all aspects, not complete oneness, but certain things there's oneness, certain things there's oneness. We're all spiritual beings. That ultimately everything is spiritual. Yeah, okay, we believe that. We are all created from God, out of God. So therefore, we are also we have similar qualities in some ways to God, in very small degree, right? Because we're small souls, and he's the supreme. So okay, so then, so he says here, Shankara says it's impossible to look into the Vedas and see proof for a personal God. Okay. Now Ramanuja accepts the existence of an absolute being, the Supreme Lord, Sriman Narayana, and does not hold that everything in the universe outside of that being is unreal or illusory. So Ramanuja believes in three things: Ishvara, God; Chit, the souls, the Jivatmans; and Achit, insentient matter, unconscious matter, right? On the other hand, to him, everything is real. So Shankara says only Brahman is real. Everything else is unreal, right? Whereas Ramanuja says everything's real. Everything's real. Everything's real. Everything comes from Brahman. Brahman is real. So everything that comes from Brahman is also real. Even illusion is real, right? If illusion wasn't a real thing, then how could it affect you? If it's not real, it can't affect you. So there's a real type of illusion. Even if you make a mistake because you're in the deserts and you see that mirage, you actually think that you see the mirage. So there's something real affecting you, and that is an illusion. The illusion itself is somewhat real. It's not as real as a real lake of water, but it's got some reality to it. Shankara gives the other example of a rope and a snake. If you go in a dark room and you look and you see a rope on the floor, you think maybe it's a snake because you can't see properly. As soon as you turn the light on, you see it's only a rope, right? So the rope and the snake. Is the rope a snake? Until you turn the light on, you don't know. You see the shape of a snake. It could be a snake, but you don't know for sure. When you turn the light on, you get enlightened, and you see it's not a snake, it's just a piece of rope. So the rope is real. The snake is also real though, because when you saw the shape of the rope, it's also got the same shape as the snake. And because you've heard of snakes, or maybe you've seen snakes before some other place, when you went into the dark room and you saw that shape, you thought, oh, that's a snake, right? Because it has the same shape like that. And you have experience of it. If you never know what a snake is, if you didn't know what a snake was, then you wouldn't think that. But there is a real thing called a snake. It's just not here. So the mistake is thinking that the rope is the snake. But there is a rope, and somewhere else there's a snake, somewhere. Or there was a snake. Or you have knowledge about a snake, right? Okay, so in that sense, Ramanuja says everything is real. So in that example of the rope and the snake is also real, but he's not there. He's not there. It's the rope which is there. The snake is somewhere else. Okay, so Ramanuja accepts the existence of the absolute being and does not hold that everything in the universe outside that being is illusory or unreal. On the other hand, to him, everything's real. He preaches that in a very, and this is called in Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, these two positions are called Vaivartavad and Parinamavad. So all of the Vaisnava acharyas, and even some other acharyas of other cults, the Shaiva cults or whatever like that, they are Parinamavadis. They believe that the Supreme was the creator and created out of himself the world and the souls. Yeah, that the world and the souls and the Lord and the Supreme Lord, they're all real. But Shankara doesn't believe that. He's called a Vaivartavad. He says that there's an illusory transformation of Brahman into the world and the souls. There is really no transformation. It's an illusion. So he has a theory which is called adhyasa. Adhyasa means superimposition, that illusion or ignorance is superimposed upon the reality which is Brahman. Brahman has no qualities. Just like if you have, let's say, you have vanilla ice cream, right? You have vanilla ice cream, and somebody asks you for chocolate ice cream. So you only have vanilla ice cream, but you have chocolate sauce. So you put chocolate sauce on the vanilla ice cream, and it looks like the whole thing is chocolate. And you give it to somebody and say, this is chocolate ice cream. And when he bites into it, once he gets knowledge of it, right, he knows what it is, he sees that under the layer of chocolate, there's vanilla ice cream, right? So the thing is, so that's the point. The point is that Shankara's idea is that once you get knowledge, once you get real knowledge, you'll understand that everything's vanilla and is not chocolate. But because you're in ignorance, you don't know the trick that the person played on you by covering the vanilla with chocolate, right? Therefore you think it's fully chocolate. It's not. It's unreal. Okay, so anyway, I mean, that's just an analogy I thought up on the spot. There's probably better analogies than that. But anyway, let's go on. Okay, so on the other hand, let's see, according to him, God permeates. He preaches that there is a very intimate relationship between soul, matter, and God. Again, so God is Ishvara, the soul is called Chit or consciousness, and Achit, that with no consciousness, is matter, right? So there's a relationship between those three, right? There is a relationship. They're not totally unrelated. So according to him, God permeates or permeates, right? And forms the basis of everything in this universe. God is not merely a transcendental absolute being. Transcendental means completely outside of this world and completely beyond this world and not really being in this world at all. He's not merely a transcendental absolute being above and beyond the finite universe, but as already stated, God is both immanent and transcendent. God is transcending this world. He's beyond this world, but he's also within this world, completely pervading this world or completely omnipresent everywhere within this world. So, but as already, so God is not merely transcendental absolute being above and beyond the finite universe, but as already stated, is both immanent and transcendent. Although the conscious Chit, the souls, and the unconscious Achit, matter, objects in the universe coexist with God, the souls and the universe coexist with God, right? Yet they derive their existence from him and they are sustained through him. They are controlled by him and they are dependent upon him. The pluralistic universe, the universe of many different things, right, is real in precisely the same sense that God is real. Thus, matter and the soul are dependent upon God as their ground, as their basis, as their substratum, and they are what they are because of Brahman, because of the Supreme, because of God. God is the soul and controlling power of the universe. The universe. If you think of yourself, you have a body. You have a subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego. You have a gross body made up of material elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, right? And those together, those 8 material elements make up your body, both subtle body and gross body. What you are actually is you are the soul there within the body that pervades all the body, right? Your consciousness, when you cut your finger, you feel it. When you taste something on your tongue, you taste it. When you smell something, when you hear something, when you see something, you're connected with it. And the soul experiences those things through the senses, right? So you have a material body, but you're not the material body. You are the soul within the material body experiencing through the senses of the body, like that. So similarly, God is the soul of the universe, and he pervades the whole universe with his consciousness, just like the way we pervade our whole body with our consciousness. And therefore, he understands everything that's going on in every part of the universe, just the same way as we understand everything that's going on in all parts of our body. Right. So this is the analogy that Ramanuja gives. It is called Sharira Shariri Bhava. the Sharira is the body. Shariri is the owner of the body, the controller of the body, the basis of the body, the soul. So the body-soul relationship, Sharira Shariri Bhava, is the unique example that Ramanuja gives to explain, in terms that we understand, the relationship between the souls, the universe, and God. Right. So according to our view, on the other hand, Brahman, or the Supreme, which has for its body all sentient and non-sentient beings, whether in their subtle or their gross state, is always in its affected as well as in its causal condition. In its causal condition, right? Preemptively, before it causes things to happen, right? In its potential, we can say its potential position, potential condition, and also in its affected condition once it creates the universe, right? In both conditions, free from all shadow of imperfection. Supreme Lord is free from all shadow of imperfection, right? And a limitless ocean of exalted qualities, right? So the Supreme Lord of Ramanuja is called Ananta Kalyana Guna. He has unlimited, auspicious, exalted qualities. Whereas the Brahman of Ramanuja has no qualities whatsoever. No good qualities, no bad qualities, nothing. But the God of Ramanuja has unlimited, auspicious, wonderful, good qualities. So, and has complete perfection. His complete perfection has no imperfection. The Brahman of Shankara has imperfection in the sense that it can be covered by illusion. It can be covered by Maya. So isn't that an imperfection? It is. Okay. So the Brahman of Ramanuja cannot be covered by Maya. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, Mama Maya Duratyaya. My Maya is very difficult to overcome. But Krishna is never overcome by his Maya. It is his Maya. It's under his control. So he's not overcome by it. Whereas Shankara believes that Maya overcomes Brahman. And Brahman therefore thinks that it's an individual soul or a piece of matter or a universe or whatever. Like that. This is ridiculous. Okay, so now, anyway, all imperfections and suffering and all changes belong not to Brahman, but only to the sentient and non-sentient beings, which are its modes. So just like this body, right? This body changes. Our mind changes. We might change our mind. We might have different likes. And when we were young, now that we're older, we have different likes and desires, right? So our mind, our subtle body, and our gross body definitely changes from boyhood to youthhood to old age. This is also described in the Bhagavad Gita in the second chapter by Lord Krishna, Deheno Shminyata Dehe Komaram Yomaram Jara, right? So from boyhood to youthhood to old age, the body changes. So the body changes, the gross body, and also the subtle body, the mind, the intelligence, the ego, they all change. So these things change, right? But what stays the same as the soul? The soul is the same. So similarly, God is the same. God's body, which is the universe and the souls, may change. So this is this is a quotation from Sacred Books of the East, SPE, volume 48, right? Which is Ramanuja's Shrivasya translated into English by this person called George Thibault, who was a European scholar, Indologist, who was very. We read about him before. He appreciated Ramanuja's explanation of Vedanta better than Shankara's. He translated both, but he said Ramanuja's is much better. So the highest Brahman, right? The highest Brahman, the highest supreme absolute truth, which is denoted by the term being, is the substantial and is the substantial and also the operative cause of the world, and that is. It is all-knowing, endowed with all powers, that its purposes come true, that it is the inward principle, the supporter and ruler of everything, and that, distinguished by these and other qualities, it constitutes the self of the entire world, the soul of the universe, right? This is also from the same volume, page 78, Sacred Books of the East, volume 48. So let's go over that paragraph. The highest Brahman, or the supreme, right? is denoted by the term being, right? Sat. In Sanskrit, that will be Sat. Sat means God, means Brahman, like that. Sat means eternal, the eternal one, right? So is substantial. It's substantial. It has actually got a substance, right? Separate from the universe. It has a substance or a personality separate from the universe, right? And also a substantial and an operative cause of the world. So there are two types of causes. There's the substantial and the operative cause. So the substantial cause, if let's say the example in the scriptures is given of making a clay pot. So to make a clay pot, you have to have two things. You have to have clay, and you have to have a potter, a person to make the pot, the creator. So the clay, in this sense, the clay is also God, the potter is also God. The God makes the universe and the souls out of himself, but he also makes them. So these two things are called Nimittakarna and there's I'm forgetting the Sanskrit term, but anyway, substantial and operative cause, right? So one is the core, is the substance of the cause. What is the substance of the souls and the universe? God, right? He makes everything out of himself. There was nothing before him, so he was all alone. And in the Upanishads it says, in the beginning there was one, and the one became many. Right? The one became many, created the universe and the souls out of himself. Right. So therefore, they are made from himself, right? And they're made by himself from himself. So that he is the substantial and the operative cause. Now, Madhva doesn't agree totally with that. Madhva's idea is that God creates the world. He makes the world. He's the potter making the pot, but he didn't create the clay. And the clay didn't come from him. He's not the clay that the pot is made out of, and he didn't make the clay. The clay was always existing, the potter was always existing, and therefore the pot's always existing. So the universe and the souls are always existing. They were never created by God, and therefore we don't have to say where they came from. They were just always existing, like that. So that would be to say that God is the operative cause of the world, but Madhva doesn't believe he's the substantial cause of the world, right? So, and also that being called Sat or Brahman or the Supreme Lord, right? That is all knowing. So it means omniscient. Omniscient means knowing everything, endowed with all powers. So omniscient means sarva gyana, has all knowledge, right? And sarva shakti has all power, right? And therefore, because he has all power and all knowledge, whatever he wants to do, whatever he thinks, whatever his purpose is it comes true. It is definitely going to come true, because there's nothing that can stop him from doing something that he wants to do. So that is his purpose. His purposes come true, always come true. So therefore, he's called Satya Sankalpa. Sankalpa means a vow. A true vow is the one that comes true, right? So God is also called Satya Sankalpa. This is the Sanskrit for all these terms that he's talking about here. Oh, Upadan Karna. So there's two. Now I remember the causes. Okay, we're talking about substantial and operative cause. The Upadan Karna is the substantial cause. Karna means cause, and the Nimitta Karna is the operative cause. Okay, so I'll just finish explaining this sentence here. That the Supreme Lord is the inward principle, the inside principle, pervading everything from inside as the support, the ruler of everything, like the soul and the body. And that distinguished by these and other qualities, it constitutes the self or the soul of the whole universe and the living beings. Okay, so Madhvas consider that the world is not part of the Supreme. Correct. The world is not part of the Supreme. The souls are not part of the Supreme. So what is the world according to their philosophy? The world is matter. The world is matter. The souls are the souls. The souls are spiritual, but they always existed separate. They were never created, and they're not transformations of Brahman. right? They're not Brahman, right? So in the Upanishads, there's a statement somewhere, right? It says Aham Brahmasmi. This is a very famous statement. So Aham means I, Asmi means am, right? So I am, and the word Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. I am spiritual. So I am spiritual. The universe is spiritual. I as a soul am spiritual. The universe is spiritual, and God is also spiritual. That's the belief of most Vedantins, right? Now, Shankara takes that to mean that the souls and the world are actually Brahman, and they're not different from Brahman in any way. And Brahman has got no qualities, so therefore the souls in the world, if they seem to have different qualities, that's just an illusion. What Madhva says is, Aham Brahmasmi doesn't mean Aham Brahmasmi, that I am Brahman. It doesn't mean that I am Brahman, right? It means God is Brahman, the souls and the world are not Brahman. So Madhva interprets Aham Brahmasmi to be Aham Abrahmasmi, that I am not Brahman. The soul is not Brahman. The world is not Brahman. We are not Brahman. So according to Madhva, the souls and the world are not Brahman. Only the Lord is Brahman, and he's separate from the souls in the world. As I said, according to Madhva, there's Panchavedas, 5 differences, right? So there is absolute difference between God and the souls, right? Between God and every soul, there's absolute difference, right? There's nothing in common. We have nothing in common with God. We're completely separate from him. The Lord is completely separate from matter, right? These two things. These are 2 Vedas out of 5. Then between the souls, right? Between the souls and one soul and another soul, they're also different. Between one piece of matter and another piece of matter, they're also different, right? So now we're up to 4 differences. And the last one is between the matter and souls, there's a difference. So they believe in 5 types of difference, but there's no difference between God, one form of God, Narasimha, and another form of God, Rama, another form of God, Krishna. There's no difference, according to Madhva. They're all Vishnu Tattva, they're all God, all those things. Now, there's a difference between Vishnu and Shiva, obviously. There's a difference between Vishnu and Durga. But according to Madhvas, the Supreme Lord is Vishnu, Narayana, right? And all the forms of Narayana are non-different from Narayana. Any other living being is just a jiva, like that. And those jivas are definitely different from God. Okay, so that's Madhva's philosophy. Anyway, so we're not really talking much about Madhva here because Madhva came later after Ramanuja, and also because Madhva doctrine and Madhva Sampradaya is very, very small compared to Shankara and Ramanuja. Most people in India, if you boil down their philosophy, they either follow Shankara or they follow Ramanuja. A form of Vaishnavism which accepts what Ramanuja says. There's very few people who accept what Madhva says. In the sense of this idea that the souls and this Panchaveda idea. There's very, very few people. It's only Madhvas. That's there. It's a unique thing that they believe in. Okay, let's go on. Okay, so here we have a plate. So we're going to see a picture. We were on page 24. Hopefully we're going to go to page 25 here. Plate. A Vadagalai, meaning the northern school or the country school followers of Vedanta Deshika Sri Vaishnava Brahman, who has passed through the ceremony of Prapati, which means Samashrayanam or the Panchasamskara initiation ceremony of the Sri Vaishnavas, doing japa, chanting on his japa mala, who's chanting one of the mantras which he was given in initiation, either Astakshara mantra, Om Namo Narayana, or Dvaya mantra, or Charma Sloka, whatever. And then plate B is a Tengalai Sri Vaishnava Brahman, Tengalai Sri Vaishnava Brahmins proceeding with their guru, the Vanamamalai Jir. There's a place in South India where Namalwa came from called Vanamamalai. It's a mutt, right? It's a mutt near to the place where Namalwa was, and it's a Tengalai mutt. And they're taking their guru, the person who's the head sannyasi of that mutt, and they're paying respects to him, and they're taking him, proceeding somewhere with him in a palanquin, right? So here's the picture. So this is the first picture. This is a Vadagalai, right? A Vadagalai Sri Vaishnava. You can see on the side here, he's got a basket made of a very pure, form of like bamboo or cane type basket, which he keeps his clothes in and different things in, or might be keeping puja paraphernalia in like that, just to keep it pure. He's wearing a dhoti, and he's also wearing an upper cloth wrapped around him like that. He has the big U-shaped tilak, which is typical of the northern school, the followers of Vedanta Deshika, the Kanchipuram Wadagalai Sampradaya, right? And he's also wearing the same thing on his forehead. It's a U shape, represents the footprint of the right foot of God, the right foot, not the left foot, the right foot of God on the head, right? And in the middle of that, there is a red or a yellow line, which represents Lakshmi. And inside of each one of these other 12 marks on the body, right? There's also made with turmeric, right? Or with red powder, kumkum, right? In each case, it can be made of turmeric. The red powder is if you add turmeric, if you add lime, lemon juice, or something to turmeric, it turns red. Okay, so in any case, there's a mark in the middle for Lakshmi, because this is the Lakshmi Sampradaya, the Sri Sampradaya, the lineage coming from Lakshmi, from Narayan first, but Lakshmi is the first Acharya, let's say. And then around his neck, we can see many different malas. So some of them will be made of tulsi. Some of them may be made of some other materials like that. There's also probably what we call, so there's tulsi mala there. There's also maybe Nalinaksha mala, which is lotus seed, which represents Lakshmi. So just as when we have the tilak, the white tilak on the outside, which forms the U, represents Lord Vishnu's foot. And inside that, the red or yellow marking represents Lakshmi. It's called Sri Churna. The outside is called, white one is called Tiruman. Similarly, he's wearing on his neck and his chest, Yekanta Lagna Tulasi Nalinaksha Mala. So Tulasi Mala, made of Tulsi wood, the sacred holy basil tree wood beads, and also lotus seeds, which represents Lakshmi, because Lakshmi is called Kamala because she was born on a lotus. And lotuses, if you think of lotuses, you think of Lakshmi, because lotuses have a lot to do with Lakshmi. She's always holding a lotus in her hand. She's like a lotus, and she has eyes like lotus. And there's a lot of symbolism of the lotus with Lakshmi. So, and the word Kamala also is the name of Lakshmi. So lotus seeds are used to prepare a garland or a japa mala. Mala means garland in Sanskrit. Japa means Janmanishad Papanasana iti japaha. So japa is the process by which there's Janmanishad, no more birth, and Papanasana, the sin is destroyed. So it means muttering or meditating upon the particular mantra one after another, and counting the number of times that we chant with rolling the beads between fingers and moving them from one to the other. So normally there'll be different size japa malas. Some have 108 beads, some have 54, some have 27, like that. But normally 108 beads. So he's wearing those around his neck. Sometimes they also wear what's called the Pavitra mala, which is a silken colored mala of 5 different colors around the neck, which is offered to the deity as a type of prayaschitta or atonement for unknown or known offenses that the people have committed in worship of the deity in the temple. So they do a ceremony once a year, and they cover the deity with these wonderful silk garlands, and then they distribute them as the remnants or the prasadam of the deity, honoring the devotees by giving them. And they can be worn also when doing japa, as this person is doing, or also while doing puja. Now, you can also see on his right hand, on the ring finger of his right hand, he's also wearing a kushagrass ring, a ring which is made of blades of kushagrass, usually 2 or 3 blades if he's doing a ceremony or ritual that has to do with the ancestors or the pitris or the forefathers, or something to do with the shraddha or samskars or rituals that are done after the death of someone, either the funeral or the subsequent 12 or 13-day rituals that go up to a year, and then every year for the rest of his life, he'll be doing those ceremonies for his ancestors. So in that case, he'll wear a ring of three blades of kusha grass. Now, you can also wear it on the other hand as well, but if you only have one, you can wear it on just one, on the ring finger of the right hand. That's called a pavitra. Now here we have some tengalais. Here, these are tengalai. You can see the difference in the Wadagalais have the U-shaped tilak or tiruman or caste mark, and the tengalais have a Y shape. It's like a Y with a stick like that. So it comes down onto the nose as well, like that. Whereas the Wadagalais just comes to between the middle of the eyebrows and then comes up again. Like it's just a U, but the tengalais is a Y. So U and Y. Okay, and you can see here how they're dressed with the dhotis and the angavastras wrapped around the waist. You can see clearly the sacred thread over the left shoulder and under the right arm, which is the normal way of wearing the sacred thread. So these are Brahmins, and they're wearing Dvarasanama Pundras. They're wearing these 12 markings of the Vishnu Tilaka, like that. And they're wearing specifically, all of them are wearing a particular type of South Indian dress or dhoti, which has got very thick borders. In this case, he's got temple borders here, which stick up a little bit. So, and they have even the front of the dhoti has a type of tilak on it, like that. So these are worn typically by Sri Vaishnavas, this type of clothes. Okay, so let's continue on. So we have plate 2. Plate 2, some more pictures, right? So plate 2 is, we have a Tengalai Sri Vaishnava Brahman with Diksha, right? Tengalai, usually when they say Diksha, they mean a person who has become a priest. Diksha usually means Chakrabja Mandala Diksha. It doesn't mean the normal Pancha Samskara, which is the ordinary initiation. But Diksha is usually the term that is used by Sri Vaishnavas to mean Archika initiation or temple priest initiation. So Tengalai Sri, we'll see how he uses it here. You could also say somebody who has Pancha Samskara has a type of Diksha too, right? So a Tengalai Sri Vaishnava, so from the southern school follows of Manavala Mamuni and Pilalokacharya, Sri Vaishnava Brahmana with Diksha, proceeding to pay his respects to his guru, the Vanamamalai Jir. So we mentioned about the Vanamamalai Jir again, and we should see this Vanamamalai Jir in a second. We should see the successive Jirs of the Vanamamalai Mutt from Ramanuja, right, are represented in this picture of Adishesha. Adishesha. So Adishesha is a divine serpent, right, also called an Antashesha. And sometimes you see Manavala Mamuni, you see an Adishesha over his head in deity form to indicate that he's an incarnation of Shesha, of Adishesha or Ananta. Ramanuja is also sometimes considered an incarnation of Ananta. And Lakshmana and Balarama, these are also considered incarnations of Ananta or Adishesha. Adishesha means the original servant in Sri Vaikuntham, in Vishnu's heaven. So what they've done here is, in this picture, they've made a picture of a snake like Adishesha, and then in the body of the snake they've put little pictures of different acharyas, so the body of the snake becomes like a guru parampara. Okay, so we'll see that in a minute. So it is generally believed that the Tengalai Sri Vaishnavas, that Ramanuja is an avatar. He says it's believed by Tengalai Sri Vaishnavas, right? But I would say today, although the author of this book, Swaroopium, is one of a follower of the northern school, Vedanta Dishka school. So he's sort of indicating here that he doesn't necessarily believe that, but the Tengalais believe that. So the southern school believes that. So, but I would say today everybody believes that. Pretty much everybody who's a Sri Vaishnava, whether they're Wadagal or Tengalai, they accept that Ramanuja is an avatar of Shesha, like that, who is carrying God. Right, so let's carrying God. So the Supreme Lord Sriman Narayana lies on Shesha like a bed. So let's have a look at some of these pictures here. So we have a picture here, and maybe we can turn this. I'm not sure if we can turn this. Yeah, let's see if we can turn this. Yes, we can. Okay, we turned it. Right. So here we have A and B. So at that A picture is a Tengalai Brahman here, and you can see his Brahman thread here. like that. His sacred thread, Upavita, or what's called in Tamil. In Hindi, they call it Janayu. In Tamil, it's called in Sanskrit, it's called Upavita, or which is really a term for the way it's there on the left shoulder under the right arm, like that. If it's worn a different way, it's called something different. It's generally called the Yagyopavitam, the pavitam, the thread of the sacrifice, the thread of sacrifice that he needs for sacrifice. He needs two things. He needs the kudumi, he needs the tuft, the lock of hair on the back, signifying he's a Brahman. Sometimes it comes in the front or from the top. It's called a purvashika, and he needs also the Brahman thread, the sacred thread, which is called punal in Tamil. Right, so it's called Janayu in Hindi, punal in Tamil. In Sanskrit, it's called the Upavitam or Yagyopavitam. Okay, so he's got that there. He's also got the tilak on. He's definitely a Tengalai. He's wearing Angavastram around his waist. And then here we have a picture of Adishesha. And if you can see that it's sort of a little bit out of focus, it's a little dark, but if it was lightened up a little bit, we would see that there's a personality here, which seems to be Ramanuja. And then there are some other personalities along the body of the snake, like that. And so this may be Ramanuja and Manavala Mahamuni, I'm not sure. Or maybe they were saying in the description that it has examples of the lineage of Vanamamalai. So the Vanamamalai Jia was, or Swami Sannyasi was the disciple of Ramanuja's and his lineage. Okay, very famous and big. Okay, so now we have plate 3. Now, plate 3, we have the Vanamamalai Jia in procession in his palanquin while staying in Triplicane. Triplicane is a suburb of Madras, otherwise known popularly today as Chennai. And Triplicane, the other name for Triplicane, is the actual British version of Tiruvanikeli. So Tiruvanikeli, Tiru means tree or beautiful. Van means forest. Keli means sports. So it represents the beautiful forest of Vrindavan where Krishna was playing his sports, like that. Today, if you go there, it's just a suburb in a city, like that. But the temple in the middle of the city is the temple of Krishna, right? So that's why it's called the Vrindavan part of Madras, right? And if we go to that temple, the temple deity is actually called Parthasarathy. So it's a standing Krishna with Rukmini by his side. And he has a mustache, like all North Indians tend to have mustaches. So they thought Krishna's from North India, therefore he must have a mustache. He's a Kshatriya. He should, so he has a mustache. So if you go to that temple, it's a very famous temple, Parthasarathy temple. Well, it's a Sri Vaishnava temple, and where the worship is conducted not according to Pancharatra, but according to the Vaikanasa Agama, which is the other method of worshiping Vishnu. So there are two methods that are two different scriptures and two different methods of worshiping, slightly different. They're very similar, of worshiping the Supreme Lord in Sri Vaishnavism. Okay, so that is that we're going to see a picture number A was going to be the Vanamamalai Swami Jir. Head of Jir means head of the mutt, Vanamamalai, in his palanquin in Madras, right? And we'll also see him receiving some of his disciples in plate B. So here's plate A, right? So you can see this is the palanquin of the Swami. In those days, see, a sannyasi can't go in. We don't know, obviously this was taken in the 1920s or something like that when they had photography. They had cars and things in those days, but the sannyasis were forbidden to go by car. They had to go by walk, or they had to be carried in a palanquin. So here his disciples have decided to carry him in a palanquin because he's the head of the mutt. And so the Swami is sitting here in the palanquin, and he might have some paraphernalia there, and this is covering the top so that he doesn't get sun on him. They have these two things out the ends there where people will hold them on their shoulders and carry him. Somehow or other, they've set the palanquin up on something, and they have an umbrella here, so they may be doing some sort of ritual. And then we have all his disciples, both men and women. You see even a person here with Tengalai Tilak with a big white mustache. So you have lots and lots of disciples, and this is you can see it's quite tropical, and this is supposed to be in Triplicane, you go to Triplicane today, there's no palm trees and no coconut trees in Triplicane. So in those days, in the 20s, it was a very nice, lush place, you know, sort of just like the name says, Tudavani Keli, the beautiful forest of Krishna's pastimes. Yeah. So looking at number B, we see that here's the Swami himself sitting on the what's called the Pitam, or it's like the what we would call probably today the Vyasasana. He's sitting on the asana of there's an asana, special asana for the head of the mutt to sit on, or the Acharya, the Guru, to sit on, and he sits on that. There's no pillows on it. He's a sannyasi. He just sits on the bare. It might be covered with gold sheets or copper and silver sheets like that, with Shankha Chakra and Tilak embossed on the back of it. You can see here. And then beside him, you have his disciples standing here. So he's giving an audience. Maybe he's giving a class, you know, to his students here. Okay, so let's continue on. So now we have some more pictures. We have plate 4. Plate 4 is a Vadagalai Sri Vaishnava Brahman, once again, the northern school, followers of Vedanta Deshika, with the mark of the chakra, or the discus of Lord Vishnu, on his right shoulder, made during the ceremony of Pancha Samskara, where it's branded on the shoulder. This is called Tapta Mudra Dharanam. It's a part of the 5 different acts that are performed in the Pancha Samskara, which is the initial initiation into Sri Vaishnavism. The 5 different samskaras are Tapa Pundra Trito Nama Mantro Yagasya Panchamaha. There are these 5 aspects to the initial initiation into Sri Vaishnavism. The first one, the very first, is called Tapa, which means the branding of the shoulders with the symbols of Vishnu, the chakra on the right shoulder, and the shankha, or the conch of Lord Vishnu. So the discus on the right shoulder, and the conch, or the conch shell of the Lord on the left shoulder. That is called Pancha Samskara. Okay. So then number B, letter B of plate 4 is a Tangalai Sri Vaishnava of the southern school, right? Who is a Swayam Acharya Purusha, a Swayam Acharya Purusha. An Acharya Purusha is a person who's an Acharya, right? In fact, the word Acharya Purusha is used for gurus in Sri Vaishnavism. They don't just say Acharya, they say Acharya Purusha. Acharya Purusha can have different meanings according to different people. So the Acharya is a person who's a guru, who's a teacher, who gives initiation or gives some instruction to his students or disciples, right? If you say Acharya Purusha, it can mean 2 things. As a compound in Sanskrit, it can be the Acharya, or the teacher, who is a man, right? To distinguish him from the Acharya, who is Krishna within the heart, the Chaitya Guru, right? Or it could be the Acharya of the Purusha, meaning Ramanuja, the person who is the representative of Ramanuja. So sometimes people have this slight, it's not really Ritvik understanding, but it's an understanding that everybody, all the Acharyas in Sri Vaishnavism, consider themselves to be co-students with their students, right? Co-disciples with their disciples. They don't have the ego to think that they're the master. They think Ramanuja is the master and I'm the servant, right? I'm the servant and I'm serving Ramanuja, and therefore I'm initiating these people into Sri Vaishnavism on behalf of Ramanuja. Now, that is not what we commonly understand in ISKCON today. Some people have this idea that they are actually disciples of Ramanuja. No, even though people might say, I'm Ramanuja Dasa, I'm Ramanuja Dasi, I'm a follower of Ramanuja, they also have an Acharya, who they call an Acharya Purusha, who is their Acharya, who is their specific Acharya, and they chant the prayers to their Acharya like that. Nobody thinks that they're a direct disciple of Ramanuja, because Ramanuja was there 1,000 years ago. Okay, so Acharya Purusha, though, is an interesting word, and it can have several meanings. Swayam means himself. He's an Acharya himself. So there are different types of Swayam. There are Swayam Acharyas. Swayam Acharyas, normally when we say Swayam Acharya, it means a person who comes outside of the normal system of the 74 lineages. There are 74 strict lineages that come after Ramanuja, and there are Acharya Purushas in each one of these lineages that come down like that. But outside of those, you have the Madhadikaris, the sannyasis, and you have some other people who are also doing Pancha Samskara. And so sometimes in their families, if they're Pancharatrans, because after all, Panchasamskar is a Pancharatric ceremony. So it's there in the Pancharatra. So there were people practicing Pancharatra before Ramanuja, separate from Ramanuja, not associated with Ramanuja, not coming from Ramanuja's lineage. So those people could also be Swayamacharyas. They could be self-acharyas in their own families or in their own lineages like that. So that is usually what you mean by when you say Swayamacharya. However, it might also be that somebody uses the term Swayamacharya to mean somebody coming in those 74 Grihastha lines in their families, right? Giving initiation in those families, right? As distinct from a person who's a sannyasi who doesn't come in a seminal lineage or a familial lineage, but is appointed by the previous sannyasi, like that. Okay, so if that makes sense. Now let's see if we can turn this to its side too. Right? Okay, we did. All right, good. Right. So now we have A and B. So in A here, we have, in B, if we go on the right side, he's going right and then left, which is the normal way to do things in Sri Vaishnavism is always right is always first and left is always second, right? So right is right and left is second. Right is first, right? Because right is considered the more auspicious side, okay? So the picture on the right is A and is a Wadagalai Sri Vaishnava. You can see by the U shape of the tilak on his forehead, and you can see here on his right shoulder, you can see the discus of Lord Vishnu, which has been burned into his skin. Now, why does it look white like that? It looks white like that. It could look white like that for a couple of reasons. One reason is it could have been done with chandan. It could have been done with white paste and just stamped on like that. But since he mentioned it was done in Panchasamskar, it was branded on there. After some time after it's branded, the skin, especially if you have darker skin, the skin will peel off and will leave a white outline of the contour of the discus in this case, right? Which shows through. Now, depending on how hard and how long they hold the brand on the person's skin, right? It may or may not give you a mark that is very distinct, or it may just look like a blob, or it may not last forever, or it may just last for a few years. It all depends, like that. Okay, so here it's sort of clearly visible, like that. If you can see, I don't know, you can't see in the video, but I can show you. Mine are clearly visible also. So he has a book in his hands like this, which is probably some scripture, and he's wearing his upper cloth draped over his left shoulder, just in the same way that you wear the Brahman thread, the sacred thread, the upavita, or called in Tamil the punal. Yeah. Okay. So then we are on the left hand side in picture number B. We have a Tengalai Sri Vaishnava, and you can see that he has got, not only, it's very interesting actually, he's got 12 tilaks on his body like that, but he also has put some markings of tilak here on the right side of the chest, and maybe even on the left side of the chest. Now this is a type of tilak marking that is sometimes put on by Madhvas and represents the Srivatsa, right? So I'm surprised to see a Sri Vaishnava wearing it like this, but maybe he's just wearing it like that. We should ask somebody whether Sri Vaishnavas also do this, but Madhvas also tend to do this. They put some marking there on the right side of the chest, which represents the Srivatsa. Of course, the idea of there are different types of liberation spoken of in the scriptures. One of them is called Swaroopium. Swaroopium. So Swaroopium means having the same bodily form as the Lord. And the difference in Vaikuntham, if you want to know, between a person who has the same bodily form as the Lord and then the Lord himself, is that person doesn't have the Srivatsa. Because this is one of the qualities, things that we cannot attain in Sri Vaikuntham. When we attain liberation, we cannot become the husband of the goddess of fortune. So no other Vishnu, non-Vishnu Tattva form, right, even of a person who's liberated in Vaikuntha, will have a Srivatsa on his chest. So, but somehow or other, he's put this on his chest, on the right side of his chest here. Okay. And he's also wearing a punal or a Yagyopavita Upavitam, and he's also wearing it in the Upaviti way, over the left shoulder and the right arm. Okay, so let's continue on. We have plate 5. Plate 5 is the Sayanadivas. The Sayanadivas, Sayana means lying down. Adivas means a preliminary ceremony. Of God, Vardaraja Swami. The word Varda means giving of a blessing or giving of a boon or giving of a benediction or giving some present or giving something to the devotees. People who pray to God, they want something from God, then God will give it to them. And Vardaraja means that great kingly personality of God who gives benedictions to his devotees. So, and especially the name of it's the name of the main deity in the temple in Kanchipuram, Vardaraja Perumal. So, God Vardaraja Swami and his consorts in a Pratishta ceremony. So, Pratishta ceremony is the installation ceremony of the deity. So, we're going to see some deities, and these will probably be smaller festival deities or what's called Utsava deities made of metal or bronze, Panchaloha, 5 metals. And not the big stone deities which are permanently kept in the temple. Right, so these are called Vardaraja Swami is the name of this deity, and we don't know exactly where this temple is. The Archaka, or the Pujari, the priest in the picture, is sitting with a shruk. Shruk and shruva are the two ladles that are used to put ghee into or sacrificial things into the fire, into the sacred fire, in front of the kundam, which is the receptacle for the sacred fire. The second or the left-hand picture will be Jaladivasam. Adivasam again meaning a preliminary ceremony in the installation or the consecration of the deity or the icon, like that, of God and his consorts, his two wives, Sri Devi, goddess of fortune, and Bhu Devi, the goddess of the earth, on the left and the right, respectively. And Jaladivasam means when they are kept in jala or in water for purifying the deities before installation. The Vigrahas, which is another name for deity or icon, or murti or pratima, these are all different names in Sanskrit and English for the same thing. The figure of the Lord, which is worshipped in temples, is immersed in water in large metallic vessels. So they have these large cooking pots and things like that, which are perfectly clean from the temple kitchen. They fill them up with water and they keep the small festival deities in there as a preliminary ceremony of the installation. The priest here, he's a Vadagalai Sri Vaisnava Brahman wearing a Brahman thread, sitting with a bell. On top of the bell is a Shankha Chakra on the top to show that it's a Sri Vaisnava bell. There's a 3-tiered pit, which is decorated with turmeric and kumkum. Right? We can't see because it's black and white picture. And this is where the sacred fire is going to be made. And leaning on the side of the pit are the Shruk and Shruva, the large, they're also called Darvi and Uttara Darvi in Shrauta ceremonies, right? And they represent smaller and bigger ladles that are used to make offerings. There's a pitam over here, or a raised platform on which there's a pot with coconut and some leaves on it, like that. This is probably the Mahakumbha Upakumbha Sthanam, like that, the place for the great Kumbha and the other Kumbhas. There's another pot on this side here, which is obviously open, it's keeping water in it. And there's some other utensils here at the side, which are used with an udarni, with a spoon, to offer Padya Argya Achmaniya, Argya Padya, Achmaniya, and Shnanodika, Sudodika, and Sarvatatoyam to the deities. Now, here are the deities in the background. Lord Vishnu in the middle with his conch and his discus in his right hand, his conch in his left hand, and two other hands, one hand on a club here, and the goddess Sri Devi on this side, and the goddess Bhumi Devi, goddess of wealth and the goddess of the earth on either side. On the back wall, you see it's in a Vadagalai. There's a Vadagalai priest. It's in a Vadagalai temple with Vadagalai tilak or markings on the walls. And here is what we call the Jaladivas. Jaladivas, the deities, the same deities, kept in vessels with water like that. And there's also another pot in front called a Somakumbha with a kurcha or a piece of kusha grass tied in a special knot, and mango leaves and a coconut in there. This is to represent the moon, or it could be a Rakshakumbha to protect the deities while they're in this position. And we also have a bell here with Shankha Chakra on the top, some other vessels in front. And this shaped vessel is called a pela, which is the throw-out pot. After we offer to the deity, we throw the water out after we offer to the deity into the throw-out pot. Over here, it looks like there's some sort of picture. It's sort of interesting to see that they did the Jaladivas and they have the deity sticking out of the water. They, normally they try to put them completely underwater, but as long as they're in water, the whole idea of Adivas is to come in contact with the water in some way. There's some other reasons for Jaladivas also. It tests the deity. Especially when you have a stone deity. If you put it in, they go and they put them in the river sometimes, and they see if it's not made of proper stone, it may crack, right? Wow. And you want the deity to fail and to crack before you install it. You don't want it to crack when you're doing abhishekam after you've installed it, right?
Wow.
So it's a test. It's also a test, the Jaladivas. Okay, so like I said in the lecture, if you really want to go deeply into the difference between the different sampradayas, Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, like that, showing the difference, like that, it'll describe all the different. It'll show,
Yeah, but this concept of Madhvas, that they consider jivas and material world separate from God, and they don't make a relation with God with these subjects. So how can we say that God is the source of everything?
You can't. They don't say that.
It's not possible. So
they don't say that. They say that, and they say some jivas will never have a relationship with God. They'll just go to hell and stay in hell forever. And other jivas will stay here in this material world forever, and they just go round and round in samsara. No. Only some jivas will go to moksha.
Sattvic jivas, they say.
Sattvic jivas, yeah.
But Madhva appeared after Ramanuja, right?
Yeah, sure. Yes. Mm-hmm. Sure.
And Madhva commented something about Sri Sampradaya. He said something about them.
I'm sure. I mean, I have one book which is written by a Madhva guy where he compares Ramanuja's theories on certain things with Madhva's theories. So yeah, they do like that. But see, Vedanta Deshika came after Ramanuja, and Vedanta Deshika knows very well about Madhva, about Dvaita Vedanta. Nobody knew Dvaita Vedanta before Madhva. Madhva made that up. He created that. There's no ancient acharyas teaching Dvaita, right? Yeah. Whereas Ramanuja clearly says, I have gotten my inspiration for codifying Vishishta Dvaita from the previous acharyas like Bodhayana, Tanka, Dramida, Guhadev, Kapardin. These people have all written in this way, and I have just put their doctrines together in a form and made the argument against Shankara. Yeah. Shankara and Ramanuja basically says Shankara has some truth, but the problem is he goes wrong in some places. It's not the whole truth. He has a little bit of truth. Yeah. And that's why it sounds good, but it's worse than a lie because it's not the full truth. The full truth is that there is difference. There's not just oneness, right? So Shankara avoids the difference. Madhva avoids the oneness. They're both in denial that those both things are there in the Vedas. Both things are there. Yeah. Oneness and difference are there. But Ramanuja is very specific about where the jiva, where the world is similar to God or the same as God in certain ways, and where it's different, right? Like a spark and a fire, like the light of the sun and the sun itself. The light of the sun comes through my window every day, but the sun planet never comes through. If the sun planet comes through, I'd be completely burned to pieces, right? So there's a difference between the sun and the sunlight, but in one way, we can say they're both the same. There's a difference between a spark, right? If I'm sitting around a fire and a spark comes off and I see a little spark, I can even grab the spark and I can squish it and make it go out. It's just a little spark. It just has very little power. It's minute, like the soul is minute, like that. But I can't try to put out the whole fire with my hand, right? You see sometimes people have a candle and they with their fingers, they put out the candle. They just grab the flame and put it out. And because they do it very quickly, it doesn't burn them, you know? So, but you can't do that with a huge fire. You'll completely burn your hands, right? So there's a difference between the fire and the spark. But does a spark have light? Yes. The spark appears to have some light. It gives off some light. Does it have some heat? Yes. Does it have some power? Yes. Very small. It can be covered by smoke and we can't see it. The fire can never be completely covered. It has so much heat, so much light. We can't. So that's the idea. So God is like that. We have some qualities which are like God. We are God-like, right? Even the Bible, they say man was created in the image of God, right? So he created us to be like him, but we're not him. We're very insignificant. And in some ways, we're completely different from him because we're dependent upon him. He's not dependent on anything. So there are some things to say that are completely different, but he has knowledge and we also have some knowledge. We have some knowledge. We don't have all knowledge, but we have some knowledge. We have some happiness. He has all happiness. So we are different we're different and we're similar in some ways. We're similar in some ways and we're different in other ways. That's the real problem. Ramanuja is very centralized. He's in the middle. Madhva and Shankara are fanatics on either side, and they just say, no, it's all one or it's all many. No, it's not black and white. It's in the middle somewhere. There are some things that reality is not always black and white. So that's the point of Ramanuja, is he says, no, we have to accept all the statements in the Vedas. We can't accept only the parts of the Vedas that talk of oneness, and we can't accept only the parts that talk of difference. We have to accept the oneness parts and the difference parts, and we have to reconcile them, and we have to be able to have a philosophy that accepts both of them. So we understand that we have some similar qualities to God, but we are not God, right? So it's very simple, but unfortunately, people make it difficult. They're fanatic and they want to say, no, it's all black or it's all white. It's not like that at all. Like that, and you see that if you read the Upanishads, if you read the Vedanta Sutras, it's if you read it objectively, without saying I must follow Shankara, I must follow Madhva, right? Or even if I must follow Ramanuja, just read it objectively, and say, what does it say? What does it actually say? There's a statement there's a statement, Aham Brahmasmi, I'm Brahman. Somebody says in the Upanishad, I'm Brahman, right? In Taittiriya Upanishad, Ahaman Namahaman, I am. He says, I'm Brahman, Brigu, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Madhva can't accept that. He says, no, he doesn't mean what he's saying. Like that, it means something else. He goes to great lengths to say it means something else. And same thing with Shankara. When the Veda says the one became many, he says, no, it didn't really become many. It didn't really become many. It's just an illusion that it's many. It doesn't. When it says many, it doesn't really mean many. So, these people, they go to extremes to try to prove their point. But Ramanuja just says, look, this is the way it's said. The one became many. So therefore, the many is also real. And yes, we are Brahman. We're spiritual, right? We're not God, but we have some spiritual nature. So, we have to find the middle path, middle way, right? And that is Ramanuja. Ramanuja is in the middle. There are many other, Nimbarka, Chaitanya, Vallabha, Ramananda, there are Swami Narayan. These people are also in the middle. They're also in the middle. It's Madhva who is right field or left field and right field. They're the fanatics in the side. Madhva and Shankara and Madhva. They're at the extremes.
Om Namo Narayanaaya.